Many readers treat the Quran as a collection of fragmented historical allegories or moral parables. But if you map the underlying mathematical structure, these fragmented pieces snap together into a single continuous geometry. Verse 1591 warns that dividing the text into parts causes the reader to lose the ultimate cosmic coordinate. Without this unified view, we remain trapped in historical metaphor. Look at the connected script and circular illumination of the physical text. This interconnected design mirrors a deeper mathematical architecture. The book functions as a unified topological field equation. No character or event exists in isolation. Each is a variable interacting within a closed, continuous system. Viewing the text as a unified topology allows us to recognize the active physics governing our own conscious existence. Verse 327 establishes a law of thermodynamic conservation, the entry of night into day, and the extraction of life from the dead. This energy circulates along a single surface, transforming from dark to light as it loops. The total mass and energy remain perfectly constant, indicated by the stable +19 invariant at its center. This dynamic flow executes inside a massive, unmoving geometric sphere, the absolute dominion described in Ayatul Kursi as the throne. Inside this sphere, light seeking the source bends upward, while mass descends under its own weight toward compression. Taghūt represents the force that severs this duality, trapping the soul as either an arrogant wave or a dead, idolized particle. To escape this trap, consciousness traverses the 2-3-7 engine, a binary split into pairs, a 3-stage cycle of trial, and 7 stable states of completion. Every spiritual state is conserved and transformed to maintain the balance of the whole system. The human traversal begins with the 2 split of assumption, referenced in the Genesis moment of verse 7:11. The divine command enters the field and divides into 2 distinct paths of reaction. Iblīs represents path A. Driven by the assumption, I am better, in verse 7:12, he freezes as a high-frequency waveform that refuses to collapse or submit. The system utilizes this refusal as a necessary boundary condition. Iblīs provides the fixed offset, the resistance, against which the field can be measured. Ibrāhīm follows path B. He tests his assumptions against the celestial bodies, but refuses to freeze his belief in them. By physically breaking the idols in verse 3795, he collapses his wave state perfectly into aligned action. This alignment overrides local thermodynamics. In verse 2169, the chaotic heat of the fire transforms into a structured, cool blue lattice, leaving him untouched. While assumption freezes our spiritual evolution, submission acts as the mechanism that purifies those assumptions into a stable reality. The Quranic field runs on symmetrical mirror operations. There are no historical accidents in the text. In verse 1850, a dense, dark particle, Iblīs, is embedded within a bright assembly of angels. His presence acts as a pressure gauge. In a field of light, his refusal forces hidden corruption and pride to manifest so they can be processed by the system. We find the inverse operation in the prophet Yunus, who is submerged in the darkness of the whale in verse 2187. This symmetrical connection reveals that both events are part of the same extraction process. Yunus maintains a specific frequency of tasbih, a rhythmic oscillation, inside the high-entropy belly of the whale. Because the dark system cannot absorb or digest this coherent signal, it is forced to eject him, extracting living mass from the deep. Light and dark actively process each other through these extraction operations, maintaining cosmic equilibrium by revealing what is hidden in both states. On a macro scale, the field responds just as precisely when human mass fractures the covenant. Verse 2087 describes the golden calf, a hollow attractor that substitutes dead, melted ornaments for living truth. When the human collective fractures, it melts into this chaotic, endlessly oscillating node of collective idolatry. The universe cannot tolerate this mass fracture and must apply a proportional corrective pressure. That corrective weight arrives in the form of Pharaoh. Pharaoh is the field's automatic thermodynamic response to the calf. He provides the pressure necessary to realign the fractured mass. Verse 17:8 confirms this recursive law. But if you return, we will return. As verse 2251 states, this aggressive counterbalance is the only mechanism that prevents total systemic corruption. Systemic evil is the thermodynamic counterweight to collective idolatry. To dissolve the pharaoh, we must dismantle our own golden calf. Every individual begins in latency, folded as pure potential, as noted in verse 76:1. The original covenant from verse 7172 remains sealed, as a memory, buried within 3 layers of darkness. Traversal requires an inward collapse, like the well and the prison, and an outward expansion through law. Activation requires passing through severe environmental filters. The cave in verse 1810 is a filter of isolation. It acts as a shield, protecting individual coherence from the noise of the Taghūt field. The second filter is the mountain, referenced in verse 7143, the threshold of absolute proximity. At this altitude, the ego is shattered. It cannot survive the direct intensity of the source. At this threshold, formal institutions drop away, replaced by the intimate relationship described in verse 2041. Awakening occurs as the ego's false structures are completely dismantled, allowing the node to finally align with its source code. The cycle resolves through the 2-3-7 engine. Duality is split, triadic trials form the pure state, and the node perpetually returns to the source. This resolution reveals the true nature of the field. The solid floor shifts, revealing itself to be clear glass overflowing water. In verse 2744, the Queen of Sheba realizes that the solid forms she feared were an illusion. The Taghūt trap was only an appearance of substance. You are currently traversing this topological field as a carrier of truth. The memory of the covenant was never lost. It was always folded into the invariant constant of your own geometry. The wave and particle resolve at this cubic anchor point, where descent and ascent finally merge. The 327 Mobius loop has completed its eternal return. The trap was an illusion, the universe is balanced, and the path home is hardwired into your existence.